Okay, I'd like to call this strategic planning meeting to order on June 30, 2025, 10 a.m. Can we please stand for a moment of silence?
God's voice.
Please join me in honoring our flag and our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have roll call, please?
We have Director Melnick,
Yes.
Vice Chair Barbara,
Yes.
Vice Chair Walsh,
Here.
and Board Chair Segovia.
Here.
All members are present.
Do we have any public comment? No. Okay. No. Okay, discussion items, strategic planning, discussion and approach on our CFP.
Right, so the request from the ad hoc committee prior to your closing out the last meeting was to find out, could we do a tiered CFD based on structural size? The answer to that was yes. We were requested to also come up with a new menu, so to speak, with a little more realistic figures that might be a little more tolerant for the community. So that's what we have taken care of, and that's what you have in front of you. So we changed. The difference between the last and this one is that at total build out, if we went for kind of the biggest ask, was an ambulance, a paramedic squad, I believe a engine, and 3 additional top step firefighters. So we've rolled that back quite a bit. Scenario 1 would be the addition of a single paramedic squad. Scenario 2 would be an additional ambulance and a squad. And then scenario 3 would be ambulance squad and 3 top step firefighters. So where we had, I believe it was somewhere around $7+ per square foot as the CFD on residential, that got taken back down quite a bit. So in order to get the paramedic squad or an ambulance, we'd be looking at a tax on hotel rooms at $100 per room. Be annually. For single family and non-residential buildings above 1,000 square feet would be 9 cents. 9 cents a square foot, and then for apartments above 1,000, we'd be just over 2 cents a foot. Stepping that up, if we would like to consider the ambulance and squad, go up to $150 per room for our hotels. We get up to 95 cents a square foot for single family dwellings and non-residential, so that'd be commercial buildings above 1,000 square feet. And then 24 cents on apartments over 1,000. And then our biggest menu, so to speak, would be the ambulance squad and 3 additional firefighters. That take the hotel rates $200 per room per year. It'd be at $1.50, $1.55. For single family and commercial resident or commercial structures above 1,000 square feet, and then 38 cents a square foot for apartments. These would again be the numbers that we would be able to see upon build out of all the available properties that we have. So it'd be apartment complexes, hotels, single family dwellings, and commercial properties that we get to these revenue amounts with. So that will take questions.
Now, when I want to ask about it, I can't find the number. Somewhere on here, what we're about expected build out for residences, or I guess it'd be parcels because they're
It's
not.
in the footnotes at the bottom.
It's awfully big too.
Yeah, well. Great. Okay, it's listenable, I can.
657 would be residential,
Which footnote?
that'd be number 2.
So
Is
this really is, right. But this really is for the fire protection district, not the whole. Fire authority,
Those would be the authorities.
because the last time our water superintendent reported back with the county's number was like 1,700, just for us out there.
We'll find out for sure, but just confirm the Kristen, this takes into consideration the entire jurisdiction.
This is going back to 20. Yeah, correct.
That's probably the last time they had figures.
I think some of the
Since
confusion is, it does say Big Bear Fire Protection District at the top.
Oh, I see.
So. We'll have to change the title. And just make, to your point, make sure that it applies to the whole. Fire authority, not just the fire protection district.
And then we had established that the cost for manpower was not for just 3, but 3 times 3 shifts. And that's why the number was so big.
Correct.
So in terms of hotel rooms, you remember how many was in the first building next to the lumberyard? It's something like 63 EDUs, but it's 100 and something.
160 rooms if they have dinner.
Just ballparking.
Yeah, it's something like that.
And then the one at Black Diamond over
58, I think.
50 or 60.
I think it's 58 rooms.
50.
Yeah, my impression talking to Mike Sager was 60. 58 spaces.
And then when he's proposed for the summit one,
158, I think.
because we've already missed the one at the Triangle, right?
Mhm.
Since it's under construction, it's not getting involved.
Correct.
But that 250 number, I'm wondering what it represents, the expected future hotel rooms at build out. Almost dead center on the page. Is that underestimating?
I would think that's underestimated, but I'd have to confirm with the city on what lots are still zoned for that.
I mean, that's not even considering that something might take a 10-acre parcel and chop it into something else.
Right. And
I
To
mean, theoretically,
speak to
your
you-
numbers only get better.
yes, and there's 1,769 potential single family dwelling spots that we can build up, and that is in part 3. If you look under that first section, net additional costs expected future single family development square footage of 1,769.
That's both city and county.
I'm just amazed at the jump in numbers from scenario 1 to scenario 2. You know, it goes for
Right.
1,100 square feet from $9 a year to $96 a year. It's just. They're confusing, and math is not my strong suit. But it's. For an additional saving, for an additional ambulance expense, it's amazing what the numbers do. So what are we looking for? Direction to say, hey, we should have this next week?
Yeah,
I mean, it was to, for one, provide the look that we can break it up and shrink things down and change. Again, it's, it's kind of dependent upon where we want to be in the future. What do we want that to look like for us as far as staffing and numbers? Cost of employees are what they are. And then the opportunity was also if we wanted to try and adjust this one more time prior to the meeting, that we could do so. And that was why we met today, so we'd have time to be able to agendize that for next week.
How hard would it be to tinker with the format in that, like taking off the fact that it says protection district and instead make it fire authority? And the other would be to explain what each scenario is. I mean, you presented it, but if somebody's just looking at this page,
Our intention was that, you know, if we do get this adjusted to where the ad hoc likes it and would like to present it to the board, that we would bring in, and I can't remember the individual's name.
Leon is the one who, put it together.
So Nihal would be available for the presentation to be able to speak to everything and be very explicit, along with, Richard Wall from BB&K, who could also kind of talk through the CFD process itself.
okay, but I'm looking at, if somebody can't be at the meeting, doesn't hear that, wasn't here to hear your explanation, and they just get this chart off the website, then somewhere on here, I would like it to explain what scenario 1, 2, and 3 is. Or if it all possibly, there's a little space down here, so.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be shoved in there.
Sure, we can get that.
So you're gonna check on hotel room build out and I'll have to go back and ask Jerry too, because if 1769 is for the entire valley, that doesn't mesh with what he said for water use. And that was based on what the county said for build out.
I'll double check on that for sure. But, I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be better.
Well, that's it, it would make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're estimating low, I
Right.
would think, yeah, it probably, anything would be better for us.
Conservative, so I would imagine it's gonna be better, so,
Well, and does it really matter?
yeah.
Because, like you said earlier, we could say 1,800. Somebody could break it into 10 more parcels, somebody could join parcels, somebody could build a hotel, somebody could break it into properties. So to me, numbers really mean nothing. This is just a stamp of approval for a what if on buildable things in the future, which we have no idea is actually gonna happen. So to me, the average citizen, I don't know if numbers really matter on how many parcels there are.
If you're potentially presenting future income, the numbers are important to me. And I would hope to the board when they look at it, in terms of, yeah, should we go ahead with this? If they're not important, they're insignificant, then why have it at all? To me, we need to explain to people, because there are some people who just, all you have to say is mellow roofs and they're automatically against it. No matter what the numbers are. So I would like to be able to lay it out in front of them. For those people who say we're not. As soon as they hear Sugarloaf Station again, that's, well, you're not taking care of your public and you're not providing the services you're supposed to, et cetera. They don't seem to register the fact that there are finite dollars.
My request will be that they produce a PowerPoint presentation for us that actually addresses all these issues. That we will all have copies of, so that we can do it as we move forward in this.
But again, if somebody goes to the website to look at this board packet, as much of this that might be in question, I would like to see. You know, only a few more lines, information explained, or the, even maybe considering when you say 3 top step firefighters, is that really 3 or is that 9?
It's 3, it's 1 per shift.
Okay, but the other figure, the squad and the fire, wasn't there 9 people in that million?
The
Or is
engine would be 9, so that'd be 3 captains, 3 engineers, 3 firefighters.
But times 3 shifts,
That would be the 3 shifts,
Right,
3, 6,
okay.
9. And then a squad would be 6 firefighters.
because the question had come up, isn't that awfully expensive for those people? But when it was clarified that it's 9, not 3,
Yeah, the squad would
That
be
makes
6
sense.
individuals, so I mean, we could break that out. Just put some in parentheses that state how many people we're looking.
so that somebody can't take it from the website, and run with figures and manipulate them.
Sure.
I can bring back the calculations, at the last meeting that we had, I broke out these costs line by line, so I'll bring that back again.
Barry, would you like to see some adjustments in a different direction or?
No, I'm struggling with how large the jump is from scenario 1 to scenario 2. It's just such a huge. Scenario 1's palatable. It's low, and then you get to scenario 2, it's just. The numbers go
And we
up.
can have that explained as well. I mean, just take it, I think, to the full board. To give them a presentation and that can be for discussion, like, hey, we like where this is headed, but we'd like to see these minor adjustments. We bring it back one more time, maybe hit that more agreeable point and then.
It's a from 93 to $959 from scenario 1 to scenario 2.
If I could, just a little bit on that, in scenario 1, excuse me. The expected property tax on the build out is almost the entire cost. So therefore, we would only be raising $107,000. That's why it's so little.
Then we need to have something in between.
We
It's just,
certainly can, we can add more scenarios.
It's up for discussion. I mean,
I
it's a
think
great time
for
to
me, I
talk
think there
about.
needs to be something somewhere in between scenario 1 and scenario 2.
Would you want to drop scenario 3 completely if it's exorbitant and just then make new 1, 2, and 3?
I think it's for illustrative purposes, it's helpful for people to potentially see what the wish list would cost. So, but not as this is something that we would be recommending. I think it's just to get a concept of what the cost is.
Well, I'm just looking in terms of if you wanted to add another column. Crunching all this into that format. So if you felt 3 was out of the question, maybe shift 3 off and bringing your other midpoint between 1 and 2 and then shove over.
What do you think another scenario would look like though in between? I mean, because the jump is because, we added, so what,
How would you get there?
yeah, how,
Well, I
I mean,
mean,
it's like.
just an example is just kind of how we configure things. So. The first could be just an ambulance,
Mhm.
and that's going to change the numbers drastically again, because you go from needing 1.3 million to 780,000, so that could be step. Addition of an ambulance seen as a good thing, we move it out here on the west end to meet our corridors, and down towards the dam. And then maybe do the next jump as an ambulance with 3 firefighters. And then you're looking at, I think it's $1.2-ish million. So I mean, we have the ability to kind of speak through that and work around it, or it could be, 3 firefighters, and then the next step could be a total of 6. I mean, we could do it in pieces, it's just that when we do this stuff, if we want that change across the board, it's a minimum of 3 people.
Right.
So, I mean, we could even go with the lowest, as we had discussed with pulling the firefighter off of the ambulance here. By adding 3 additional AO paramedics, it costs approximately $330,000 or so. Right. But I mean, I think that's something that's attainable a lot quicker than what we're looking at in CFT. So.
So-
Again, it's, what do we feel comfortable with as a group, and it's we'll chew that over and look at options.
So if we add another column. Do we think we could get the board, chewing on this at the meeting?
I think we have to. I mean, we've dragged our feet on
Yeah.
so many things for so long, and with potential buildings, it's either we gotta start doing something or.
Or we're gonna lose the new construction coming.
Okay, so add a column.
Add a column.
So our scenario 3 currently would become 4, right? Is that?
I mean, I'll defer to you, it's just,
Yeah.
we know that column 3 is a non-starter, but I think it's helpful for people to see how much stuff costs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes the other ones look better.
And it, I mean, and if Larry's worried about it fitting on here, we're printed on the paper this way.
Yeah.
So we can.
Sure, we can format it how it's comfortable, yeah, but as far as, I mean, again,
Like Bob, I'm already used to make the fact that's it. That's not the issue. I just-
Well, if we put it in landscape, it can be bigger.
Yeah.
yeah, and then column 1. Maybe we just keep that simple and we just add 3 top set firefighters and we start there as our base level at $538,000. Because I mean, we can utilize a firefighter in a variety of different ways here.
Just real quick on that, because the anticipated property tax revenues that we would get on build out are 1.2, anything less than that wouldn't require any addition, we wouldn't have any, so does that make sense? So if we reduced scenario 1 to $538,000, we wouldn't have a funding. Because the property taxes from those properties would more than cover it.
I think scenario 1 is very palatable, so.
So maybe something between 1 and 2,
Yes.
and then,
Okay, so maybe we do a squad and then squad plus an additional firefighter.
right, yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm thinking for scenario 2, that would be less than this scenario 2.
You put Jess?
I don't know, it's a little frustrating just because we've talked about this 100 times over the last 3 years, but we keep just coming up with what ifs and brackets of numbers and all this other stuff. And we talked about it to where you can't identify the costs until you have the plan. And I think we keep not identifying the actual plan we want. And if we don't do that, we're gonna keep doing this. They're gonna keep wanting brackets in between other brackets. We're gonna have to keep running numbers, and it's a little frustrating because we came up with this 2 years ago. The easiest way is AO medics, firefighter on truck. That kills 25% of all of our problems. Like, these things here, cool, they're what ifs. They literally mean nothing. These are what if somebody builds a hotel. This is what if. We've spent 3 years talking about a CFD that literally is what ifs. And it never goes anywhere. We keep trying to move this, kick the can into different things. I think the strategic planning, we have to have a plan. We have to identify what we want. Do you want an extra ambulance to be staffable? Do you want a 4th man in the truck? Do you want a squad in the valley? If that's what we want, then we have to find the cost on that. That's just what we present to the community. There's no other way around it. Like, if we can, I mean, what are you guys gonna do in here? You could put a half firefighter on a truck. You could hire 1 guy for an ambulance, and that could be in between the 2 brackets. I mean, to me, it's just crazy. I don't understand it. So that's my input on it. It's a little frustrating.
I mean, I get what you're saying, because it's like. We're trying to add half of something.
Yeah, you can't do it. It costs this much. The reason why it jumps from scenario 1 to scenario 2 is because you're adding a $250,000 ambulance. You're adding 3 or 6 new AO medics or firefighter with an AO. What do you have in there for the ambulance? Is it AOs?
Yes,
Yeah. So, yeah. When you add a new unit for A, B, and C shift, it's going to be catastrophically higher. And that's AOs. If you add another engine, as you see here, that is extremely high. So we can try all day to fill in between the gaps, but it's literally, you're putting a half person in there.
And I hear you. It got killed last time because the numbers were too big. And so we're trying to come up with a number that's not ideal, that we can sell and get people on board with. Is it ideal? No, but like, it's either find something or we're gonna go back to nobody approving it and we get nothing.
What was the number before?
It's like $7.
But what was the overall, like, what was it like?
5.8.
5.8 million down to 1.3 million. I mean, how much more do we want to drop? That seems like a pretty significant effort on their part. To make a pretty big dent in this. I mean, if we went from 5.8 to 1.3,
Correct.
what do we want to go to? 500? It's not possible unless we do the AO thing and bump the firefighter over. That's $333,000. That's the cheapest thing we can do. But you're not building for the future at that point, to Kristen's point. You're just fixing us, to me, a simple problem now, 300 grand. I'm sure we can figure that out in the next year. If you're gonna try to do all this strategic planning, all of this stuff, just to hire an AO medic, that has nothing to do with our future, which is what this is. This is 10, 15, 20 years down the road when we actually need an extra engine in play and an extra ambulance in play and all of these other things going because we're running 2,000 more calls a year. So I think we're mixing what we need now versus what we need in the future. What we need in the future is to go a little mid-ground on, hey, it's gonna cost us 3 mil, but that's over 15, 20 years. 3 mil more over 20 years is not a lot. Our engines literally have gone up 40% since we bought this tower. That tower went from 1.5 to 2.2. Our engines are at $1 million now. They were just 700,000. Literally, twos. We just put it in service a few months ago, and now that rig's coming 400 grand more. 2 mil over 10 to 15, 20 years based off of what ifs, hotels going in, parcels being built. We have,
Based on 25-year bill, so the presumption would be a 2060 completion of all this project, just so we're tracking.
And I appreciate that we're talking in hypotheticals, but we're not when the person is building their house and they've got a new bill on their taxes for an additional, where we were a couple years ago, $7,000 a year. And that impacts somebody's desire to live here and grow. And so it's trying to find where that tipping point is, where we don't harm growth and development, but try to fund things. So while it only seems like 3 million over 30 years to that person who is building their small little dream cabin or doing whatever it is, that hit that they're getting on their tax rolls on top of everything else that's going up in costs has a real impact on that person. And so that's where we're trying to find, where is it that we can fund us while not stifling growth and development?
And this is a starter in terms of, then we start adding a build each year for cost of living. So if you start way too low to begin with, you've shot yourself in the foot 35 years from now.
well, I know we always focus on tourism and supporting them and making sure that they don't get taxed anymore or have to pay anymore. But that excuse has prevented this organization from growing. So I don't have any sympathy, to be honest, because when I go down the hill and I go to Disneyland or San Diego or Orange County, I pay hundreds of extra dollars for crap I don't necessarily care about. But guess what? I do it because it's a tourism community. You guys spend 5.9 million bucks every year on tourism, right? I have the numbers on how many that brings in, millions of people. You have 800,000 staying overnight in Big Bear Lake. So I don't have sympathy for people that come up here to blow cash, and they're all coming from wealthy areas. Most of them are wealthy. And if they're going to build a house in Big Bear, California, guess what? You're going to have to pay an extra 50 bucks, whatever it is on your annual tax bill. So I just hate that we keep preventing ourselves from growing because of the fear of the rich guy coming up here and building a 4,000 square foot house. So
I'll have to get some clarification too, because I believe with the CFD that exists currently out in Big Bear City, there's an elevator that is based off CPI and that kicks in, is it every year or is it every couple of
I'd have to
years?
double check.
So I mean, that would be a part of it too. So as far as trying to figure out, what is the number that we're looking for? What is the values that we're comfortable with that won't stop development or delay it or cut it off, but maintain development while still providing, revenues for our infrastructure, personnel, et cetera. There's still gonna be a little add-on to it. So I mean, that it'll go up a percentage or 2 or 3, every however often that that's considered into it. But again, you know, for this, the strategic planning process is to come up with something that this group feels comfortable with presenting to the board, that we say, yes, this is the plan that we want to go with. It's not set in stone. We can evaluate it in 5 years, or whatever, and go, okay, we'll kind of change the direction here. We want to focus on this area, and then we can amend it. Whatever we say does not become cemented. It still has some flexibility for the group to consider things, to change, amend, add, subtract as we go forward, depending upon what marks we're trying to get. So, you know, we have to be flexible in this process because over time, you know, our desires might change, needs may change.
And by asking now, so that we get this to the next meeting with some numbers we think can be promoted.
Yeah, I mean, we
Right.
killed it 2 years ago. The board killed it. It was a non-starter. So we're
I-
trying to come with a place that they don't kill it.
I don't want to show up the next meeting and have them ask for another column or another 2 or 3 columns. If we can maybe cut that off at the knees. And progress.
I think we've felt that over the last 2 years, and we shot too high. The CFD was not realistic, and nobody was gonna tolerate it, because it would do exactly what we don't wanna do, which is stop development. In an additional $7.57 per square foot. Nobody's building. Sincerely, because they know that nobody's gonna buy that property. They're gonna sit on it.
And it's not just second homeowners. We're trying to make this a community that people want to move their families up and live here.
Right.
And these are,
That's over time.
exactly.
But I mean, I think the group can agree, though, that what we've got here is farming.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
So yes, is there gonna be a variance between scenario 1 and scenario 3? Yes, there is, but you know, when we decide to move forward with something, we're gonna present that in a way that says, well, this is the option that we have. And is it something that people can truly tolerate? We'd look at that, you know, one more time, if they say, yeah, we're liking that. But I mean, if you're talking incremental change, about 50 foot based on the size of the structure that you're building, you're adding, what would that be to a 3,000 square foot? Oh, since you're.
I don't have my, sorry.
Would that be?
It's 45.
4,500.
Yeah, for,
That's the year.
That'd be a-
for a 4,000 square foot home, and about $4,600.
Yeah,
That won't fly.
that may not fly, but that's what we're here to talk about.
Couple hundred. 300 to 500 a year, that will fly. But you're not gonna get, and like you say, do it. Reevaluate in 5 years.
We reevaluate the
Start
plan.
some, you have to get this going.
Of course, yeah. The CFD itself would be whatever we develop. That's why we want it to be correct. This will not likely change. It's in itself, once it's approved and we go forward. So whatever we say we like, we're going forward, that's where it's gonna be. The flexibility comes in, what do we do with that money? If we say that we're gonna spend it on personnel, that's what we're gonna use it for, is personnel. Now, how many personnel? Well,
And
Yeah,
you
that
don't
turns
know how
into-
much money. Cause we don't know what's.
right. But I mean, all of this is based on assumptions. The stuff's built. The number of lots
But
exists,
we need to get,
where they're zoned.
we need to get this road,
Yes.
we need to get it into effect,
Yes.
wherever we start.
Right.
Otherwise, it's gonna be another 2 years.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to get it.
Each time we got the presentation about, we only have 11 firefighters and we should have, was it 17?
That's NFPA standard.
It's a recommendation.
How much does this do to address that?
Over 25 years, I mean, the in scenario 3 is the closest thing you're gonna get to it. Scenario 3, actually, it's it. Right
Yeah,
now,
squad would take us to 12 suppression members a day. Based on where we're at currently. Ambulance would not change that. And then the addition of the 3 firefighters would take us to 13 per shift.
Which is still short, the recommended minimum.
but we're not, like, that's where we come into play as the reality. We don't necessarily need 17. That is the recommended. But on a day-to-day basis, based off our call volume, what we run, the fires we run every year, sure, would it be nice to have that many people on a fire? That would be amazing because it's our safety that we're dealing with on our end. But there is a mid ground that we can work with operationally. So it's one of those things you don't necessarily have to shoot that high. And let's say 10, 15 years go by, and all of a sudden we have 2,000 more calls, we're running 3 fires a week, and it's becoming more prevalent that our lives are in danger, that there's actually operational things happening that are occurring. You can reevaluate at that point what's going on. So the standards we don't necessarily buy into 100%. They are there, and it is based off science, but you don't have to shoot for that right from the start, right? Because that for sure will kill any plan that we have.
And this doesn't even take into consideration what changes we can make in this organization prior to that build out.
But pulling the trigger on this sets the baseline. And in order to get it boosted, if you decided it wasn't enough, you'd have to redo the whole thing.
Well, that would go into the strategic planning process. What is this stuff bringing us revenue wise annually right now, where we're at in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Are we anywhere near full build out? We'll have to see. I mean, that'll be part of the evaluation, but
We
again,
had to reevaluate.
yeah, it just goes into the evaluation process, and that's why.
Like me buying an apartment building, I got 15. I'm gonna charge, oh man, I'm gonna go buy a Lambo after I got this rented out. And then nobody wants to rent, you don't know how much money you got until you start, you get this into effect. Then we know what we got coming in. Then we could say, okay, we got this much money, this is what we could do. But we don't know until get this into effect. At
What we
least
do know is we have a
start.
hotel coming in, so we need to.
Yeah, hotels don't wait. So they're gonna be the ones that slip by and don't get impacted by this, and then it's only gonna be the homeowners
Mhm.
left that are getting impacted. So,
So we need to,
Yeah, that's where the sense of urgency really comes in.
so we'll add another column, we'll present it at the board meeting. And
Squad and 3 additional firefighters, right? And that would take us right there again, based on no change from where we sit currently. That would add 3 more people, that'd be 13 responders, suppression responders on per day, which is a great increase. Based on the 10, and it's an increase of 30%, right? And if you're looking at that, I mean, 30% increase is not bad.
we'll see what the top, like, I didn't think the 95 cents per square foot was that bad, so. Just because I remember all the stuff we built our house, all this fees I had to pay, so. I did, it's still under $1, so.
Yeah. I think all of us can agree to it and understand that we all live in California. Taxes go up whether we like it or not. I think the gas is just going up 60 cents.
Tomorrow, 68.
Yeah, so
Fill up all the cars.
we can all, scream and say that nobody's gonna go for it, but I mean. I look at it on another side that says you have enough money to build a 4,000 square foot home. You got a little more money
Yeah.
and
That's
an
it.
ability to contribute. To the organization. I mean, this is one service. You take that same 4,000 square foot home and light it on fire, it's a big issue. Not just for that house, not just for our personnel responding, but everybody that's around it, because that generates a lot of heat. A lot of heat. So, we want to make sure that we're equipping our force with what they need in order to be able to respond to that. And do so safely, so.
So we should just make sure that when we're presenting it, that it's clear to the other board members what it is we're getting in each category.
And we'll make sure that we have a presentation that addresses everything, that talks about exactly the number of people.
Yeah.
We want to eliminate there to be these definitions, so we'll put together something that answers as many of the questions as we can come up with. If not, then we'll have the 2 presenters ready to answer the rest of the questions. For board members.
Right, good.
You.
Great.
Anything else?
I do want to end with one note that I know we've been talking about district, a lot. I know we've had multiple meetings about it. I do believe that we need to maybe after we start kind of really diving into this thing and getting this thing locked in, which hopefully happens sooner than later, that we kind of switch gears onto doing that. I'm hoping to see the strategic planning start to work towards that plan. Just so you guys know, we on the union side are gonna start campaigning for that. There's gonna be grassroots growth and support that we're gonna build. There's already been effort going towards that plan. I don't know if it's going into FPD. I don't know if it's doing our own. But I would like to see this start to work towards that. I don't know what else we would be doing outside of the CFD. We've already exhausted all other revenue sources. We've looked at every other thing. TOTs aren't coming right now. So the fix is becoming a district, and I hope we can all start to see the importance of that. So
I don't have enough information to know whether I would be in agreement or not. I've been hearing a lot of mixed information about it. From governance and how it would be controlled to union benefits and what that would mean is starting from scratch. So I can't say whether I'm for it or not.
Sure, and well, you'll start seeing, we're doing a lot of footwork and there's not to take too much time of it, but like going into the FPD is the simplest thing. It's already there. It saves us $500,000. There's no campaigning for it. It's literally, we just slide in. That would require CSD to relinquish control of the authority. And that would require you guys to take control for a full year while we work out our plan. So we're working out the kinks on all that so that there is a clear understanding, but we're not going to stop pushing it, whether you guys understand it or not. It's going to be the grassroots growth that we're going to push towards. We can either do something huge with each other and accomplish that end goal and be successful as an entire valley doing something big, or we can do it on our own without the support. But just know that's what's coming.
So do you want to make that a topic for the strategic meeting? Or do you want to take it as a topic for the entire board?
Well, like Ms. Malik just said, I mean, she doesn't understand, and I'm sure nobody does, and we're only getting about 1% of the understanding. So I think if that's the goal, what we would like to see as membership for the future of us is to start learning that process. Is it truly easier to just go into FPD? Is CSD willing to relinquish control for a year so that we can build this thing out and get our own fire board and do our own source in our own district? So there's a lot that we're learning. There's a lot of resources, and LAFCO is extremely resourceful and willing to help in the process. So I would love to see this switch gears into that once we're through with this. Unless there's other things we can come up with to come meet at these strategic plans. So it's literally baby steps, but I think it needs to start occurring.
So am I hearing the answer is you want to bring it here first?
I believe this is the best place. Otherwise, we're going to do what we do on the backside, and it may not be favorable in your guys' eyes. So, and I don't want to do that. I would like to work together towards ending this thing on such a strong, great note, instead of potentially having the two boards collapse and abolish this organization. So you got to understand where we're at right now. We're frustrated and we're worried about our jobs and our livelihoods. And I'm worried about not only membership, but I'm worried about my admin and I'm worried about my AOs. So we're kind of not getting a lot of information. We're only hearing rumors and we're only seeing what we see through newspapers and, rumors coming from board meetings. So we're going to do what we're going to do to push us in this direction because we're a little untrusting that you guys are going to hold it together, to be honest. So I'm just being honest right now and up front. That's what I would really like to see strategic planning moving towards, is to put us in the safe zone. Safe zone is fire protection district. So I think this is the best place because we all are used to working with each other on these things. I don't know any other avenue really, except for here.
But are the topics that the strategic committee is allowed to consider, does that have to come from the entire board, or do we act independently?
We have to go back and look at the minutes of what it was formed to do.
That's why I'm asking
That was why we.
where you want to go with this. Us taking to the full board may be what you have to do in the first place, not as a polished presentation, just a could we work on this?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to figure out if it falls under the purview of strategic planning.
Yeah, I mean, we had a number of things. Well, there was a huge list, 3 pages long initially of strategic planning items, and we very rapidly
We thought we were gonna
crossed them off.
crush it.
Yeah, So-
Money.
I don't. I would love to see us figure that out, and if that's what it takes, is we get board support to come back here and start talking about that.
But I do think we are gonna have to get facts,
Sure,
because I've also heard varying things about, and I'm sure you wanna make sure your pensions are fine, so we need facts.
sure. I guess where I'm at is I don't want us to just start doing these crazy things on the sidelines without you guys knowing, but I'm going to. So I would rather you be a part of that and let us come to these meetings and be like, hey, we talked to homeboy at LAFCO, he said this. And then we work towards a goal on that. So that's where I'm at. I'm just hoping that we can gain support and traction on that idea.
Well, it seems like, can I be honest? It seems like you're telling us what we need to decide as opposed to wanting to have a conversation.
Oh, no, the problem is it's been 3 years of strategic planning and I'm frustrated because we've made zero movement. So, and like I said, the rumors that I'm hearing of Bear Lake wanting to abolish JPA, the rumors that I'm hearing that you guys are pretty much not going to get along as our board, which is what we're stuck in the middle of. Now, I don't know what's true and what's not because I don't hear anything coming out of meetings. I know you've had multiple fire protection district meetings. I don't believe that you're trying to sue each other, which is what the community is stirring up. I believe that is a proper process. I believe that it was our attorney that actually asked you guys to get attorneys, right? So there's things that the community is stirring up, which is not true. But on the sidelines, I've got a frustrated membership that thinks they're losing their jobs and that they're going to either go county or CAL FIRE or your own sides or whatever it is. Rumors sometimes are all we have because truth is not coming out. So I'm not telling you that we need to go to a district. I'm just telling you that we're going to look into it without your support or with it. And if we find that going our own district is the way, whether you support it or not, that's what we're going to push in that community. So it's not telling you how to live your lives. It's just showing you our frustration on our end. You guys have no idea how many calls I get, not only from them, but from the AOs. I've got half the AOs that want to leave. That's our ambulances. I've got half my force that's looking at other jobs right now. My admin's being threatened. I mean, I can't do this anymore. It's a little frustrating, and I don't even want to be a part of these strategic plannings anymore because it's frustrating coming in here. I've been at these things for 3 years, and we have done nothing.
Well, it's frustrating.
And you've said it. Yeah, you've said it yourself, like we're spinning our wheels. I remember you said it the last one. So I'm sharing my feelings with you right now that I think for us to be safe, we have to figure out how to become a district. And I hope that we can all open our eyes to that over the next year or 2 or 3, whatever it takes for us to figure this out. And we could work together. And this could be massive for all of us in this community that we live in. And it's what our constituents, your constituents want. They want us here. They want Big Bear Fire here. So that's it. That's any comment I wanted to say.
I can find out if discussions over FPD in that process and what that would like can be talked about in that hub. And we get back to you. We'll make changes to this and be preparing for a presentation for next week. And we'll have that column. Make sure we can answer as many questions as we can and make this very easy to digest because I know it's challenging. It's for me too. And we'll get the name changed on the top. And
then can you also find out, we've already mentioned it, but how often it can go up with the CPI?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
I wrote CIP, but I realized that didn't look like when I wrote it. Okay,
Will the board packets be available Wednesday? Since we would normally have Thursday and that's all.
Question.
I would think we can give it to you Wednesday. I'll find out for sure. I'll email the group.
I just, you got nothing else, so I just like,
Thanks, Ed.
great. Meeting adjourned.